Welcome to the show, sports fans. This is the Treasure Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
That's right. Welcome in another edition of the Treasure Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, talking about District 3. We can, most weeks in, most weeks out. Brandon Baney joined as always by our Treasure Valley resident and expert, Logan Green. Logan, what's up?
Hey, Brandon. Yeah, it's a good weekend of football all around the state, and it's crazy we're making the turn to basketball, but just it was fun, right? We covered every single state championship this week at Idaho Sports. I was down on the field for both the 5A and the 3A games. You were over at everything else, but it was just fun. It was good to see us. We got everything for you covered. Every game we were at, and just really good people covering those games for us.
Yeah, that is our slogan. If you look behind me here, we've got you covered.
So, we do.
Okay, so fans are probably wondering, where in the bleep have you guys been for the last 2 weeks? Well, last week we did our state football preview show. That was kind of the placeholder for the Treasure Valley Prepcast. The week prior to that, I had every intention of doing the show, but life got in the way a little bit. Some life changes and all of that good stuff, Logan. Basically, I live in Pocatello currently, but soon I will be moving to Coeur d'Alene up north. And so we were working on that.
Breaking news.
Right. So there's a move somewhere in my future. It won't affect anything here. I mean, we'll still do the podcast every week. It doesn't matter where I live. So, but that's why I wasn't here 2 weeks ago. I try to be fully transparent with why there wasn't a show last week. So we're back in the saddle. We're recording this the week of Thanksgiving to make up for it. Logan, you're actually at your in-laws' house to celebrate the holiday, right?
Yep, exactly.
and I'm hitting the road later this week as well for Thanksgiving. So, again, sorry we missed a couple weeks, but we are back at it, and we'll be here every week moving forward. I wanted to talk about first, before we get to the football championships, state swimming was held 2 weeks ago. And so there was a lot of, like there is every year, there's some really impressive Treasure Valley teams that came through and did really well. Let's start on the 5A boys side, Logan. I don't know that I've ever seen a state competition that was so dominated by one team. And we saw Rocky Mountain dominate cross country earlier this year on the boys side. We saw the Skyview volleyball team run rampant with everybody, but Boise on the boys side won the 5A swimming title with 375 points. I mean, this is just unheard of.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at third place, Timberline had 97. It was 300 points between first and third. That's a pretty big gap. And I mean, we've seen this with other sports from our Treasure Valley teams, right? Golf. We saw that in golf this year. I believe it was Bishop Kelly, right? That just kind of blew everybody away in golf this year. And, we've got a lot of great, in those quote individual sports, great athletes around the area right now.
Yeah, it was really impressive. So here are the highlights. Here are your individual champions on the 5A boys side. All of these athletes are from Boise. Obviously, when you put up 375 points, you're going to have a lot of individual event winners, but also high placers. Milo Shu won the 50 freestyle and the 100 freestyle. In the process, he set 2 new state records. So Milo Shu did the 50 freestyle in 20.96 seconds. The previous record was Josh Sutton of Centennial in 2019, 21.41. So he shaved off a half a second and set a new state record. And then in the 100 freestyle, new record of 46.41. The previous record was Paul Shutt of Capital in 2019, 46.51. So literally a tenth of a second shaved out there. A little closer in the 100 freestyle, but Milo Shu, 2 new state records in the 50 and 100 free. Pretty good.
Yeah, and then he was involved in some of those relays as well for Boise, and so he cleaned up, as the kids say, right at state swimming. He had a busy event going up and down on that podium all afternoon.
Definitely. Ben Stuckey of Boise also set a new state record in the 200 individual medley, 1 minute 55.68 seconds. The previous record was Paul Shutt of Capital, 1 minute 56.45 seconds. So nearly an entire second shaved off there for Ben Stuckey in the 200 individual medley. That's a state record as well.
It was a bad weekend if you're Paul Shutt, right? He had two of his state records broken. So if anybody had a bad week at state swimming, it was him. Obviously long and gone now on the greener pastures, but those records didn't sit for a long time in the record books. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the title of our podcast, A Bad Week for Paul Shutt of Capital. That's going to be funny.
It's true, though.
Yes. And so the Boise parade, and we should mention that Paul Shutt is competing in the men's swimming and diving program at Missouri in the SEC. So, Paul Shutt's doing just fine. Former Capital High Eagle, now Missouri
Right,
Tiger.
sure.
But okay. And then Tyler Quarterman of Boise was a double winner in the 200 freestyle and the 100 backstroke. And then you had Shu, Quarterman, and Stuckey all contribute to two relay champions as well. The 200 medley relay champs, it was Shu, Quarterman, Stuckey, and Connor Pencer. And then it was Shu, Quarterman, Stuckey, and Jasper Shu in the 400 freestyle, also champions there. And then Blake Edis of Boise also won the 100 butterfly with a time of 52.63. So the Boise boys dominate. Over to the girls competition in the pool, the 5A. Lake City won the title from up north, but Timberline took second at 229 points. Boise was third with 186. And really, for Timberline, you saw Ellie McFarland win the 50 and 100 freestyle competition, so she was a double winner. Kathy Nye of Timberline won the 100 breaststroke. And then Timberline won both the 200 medley relay and the 400 freestyle relay. The 200 medley relay was Nye McFarland, Kimberly Lee, and Zoe Bitework. And then the 400 freestyle relay champion team was McFarland and Nye. Bitework was in there, and then Kaylin Bolt. So the Timberline girls performed pretty well this weekend.
Yeah, second place for them, and then Boise in third place. So again, two of the top three coming from District 3, right? So obviously didn't get it done. Lake City guys there, but hey, I'll take 4 of the top 6 any day. Not bad.
Yep. Definitely. And then Kayla Wachowski of Boise was a double champ in the 200 individual medley and the 500 freestyle. That's the most rigorous one, the 500 freestyle. I mean, her time of 5 minutes, 13.44 seconds. That's like the endurance competition.
That's a lot of time swimming in the pool. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's
I do one cross and I'm like, I'm done. I'm good. I'm done here.
Right. I do okay in the pool because I've got the big wingspan like Michael Phelps. And so but then,
there you go.
But then I've got a lot of body weight to pull, so it all cancels out.
I hear you.
Yeah. All right. 4A competition, and really, there's only 5A, 4A in swimming, right? Any school that's smaller than 4A competes at 4A, kind of like soccer. Okay, 4A boys side. Actually, let's start with the girls, because on the 4A girls side, your state champion was Skyview, but look at how close this competition was, Logan. Skyview won the title with 209 points. Bishop Kelly was second with 208. The Hawks won by a single point over BK for the 4A girls swim title.
Yeah, it's as close as you can get it, right? That was right in there. And between the blowouts we saw at some of the other levels, it is fun to see a tight one like that, even though it's a little rough, right? That somebody has to lose by a point, but it definitely makes it, from the fans' point of view and for our enjoyment, it makes it a little bit nicer. But for everybody else, a little more stressful and kind of probably harder to swallow for those people on the other side. Yeah,
definitely. Nicole Dumitrascu and Brianna Ruark were double winners. Brianna Ruark has been a phenomenal swimmer she's one of those competitors that feels like she's been there forever for Skyview. I mean, the Ruark name has been there a long time. So Dumitrascu wins the 200 individual medley, the 100 backstroke. Ruark won the 100 butterfly and the 500 freestyle. We talked about that rigorous 500 freestyle. Ruark won that competition. Sadie Schaefer from Skyview, also a champion. She won the 50 freestyle. And then they had 2 relays that were state champions as well. Dumitrascu, Ruark, Schaefer, and Camille Tyndall won the 200-yard medley relay. And then Dumitrascu, Ruark, Tyndall, and Gracie Husky won the 400 freestyle relay. So Skyview cleaning up with a lot of individual wins. So you're wondering, how did BK, only finish a point off? BK had a lot of other high placers. They didn't have a lot of individual winners, but high placers is what the Knights did. So, although they did have a
congrats to all them.
Yes, they did have a double champ. Gabriella Stanton won the 1 and the 2 free, the 100 freestyle, 200 freestyle. And then Stanton, Caitlin Giffen, Amelia Crawford, Lucy Penna were the 200 freestyle relay champs from Bishop Kelly as well. The 4A boys competition was really spread out. This was the most competitive, where you had a lot of teams kind of all stealing points from each other. Bishop Kelly took second in the competition with 150 points. Shay Stratton, a double champ for BK, 100 backstroke, 200 individual medley. And then Stratton teamed up with Daniel Nye, Cameron Shower, and Adam Hansen to win the 200-yard medley relay as well. So BK boys did pretty well in the pool 2 weeks ago. And again, congratulations to the Boise boys and the Skyview girls for bringing home state championships. And then I think the other big winner from state swimming a couple weeks ago, Logan, was the state of Idaho. Last week during one of our football games that we were broadcasting on IdahoSports.com, I got to do an interview with Ty Jones, the executive director of the IHSAA, and he said it was nice to just have everybody back in one place where there weren't all these swimming competitions being held around the state, because of the pandemic. It was nice to have everybody back in one facility, and it was nice to have fans back in the facility this year as well. That was the other big winner with the fans.
Right. Yeah, definitely. It's always, the last couple of years, it's crazy to look back and think that it's been almost 3 years since that whole COVID stuff began to happen, and how it really threw everything out of whack. And I was putting some stuff together for something on the back end business side of Idaho Sports, that the boring stuff. And it's this year is the first this is going to be the first full school year where everything is normal, right? Basketball seemed pretty normal last year, but we forget that football was still a little off even last season. And so we've come a long way in the last year, and it's great. It's great for everybody involved.
Definitely. All right. Well, speaking of football, let's move into what happened in the state championships this past weekend in football. Treasure Valley went 0-3, but man, 3 really close competitive games. I think the most exciting game was the 5A championship. I guess we'll start there. Meridian was playing Rigby. Meridian had a 21-7 lead, and Rigby came roaring back to win 28-21.
Yeah, so fourth quarter too, it was 21-7, and Rigby just fought their way back. And I don't know. I've seen different things out there, heard different people say, what happened with Meridian. Meridian was in control of that game. I will say that I have no dog in that fight at all. I did not go to either school. Nothing. I have no ties. Meridian was in control. Now, again, football is just a funny game, right? Where it doesn't matter who's necessarily in control the whole game. A couple plays here and there, and some grit in the last 5 minutes can change the game. But for those first 3 quarters, Meridian was in control. That Meridian defense was very good. And I came into that game thinking that Rigby was going to score. That my opinion was that Rigby was going to score. Can Meridian score too? And it turns out Rigby did score, but offensively, really only 1 more point than Meridian, as it was 21. It was 22-21, and then the ball got knocked out of Martinez's hand late. You could call it a fumble, you could call it interception. It didn't hit the ground either way, so whatever you want. And it was run back to the house for a touchdown by Rigby with about a minute and a half left to go. But I don't know. I just think that Meridian kind of the offense just I don't know, they kind of ran out of gas there towards the end of the game, and I don't know what happened. I don't know. I don't know if it was the different. I was down on the field, and so sometimes not being up high, you can't get a full grasp of exactly maybe where the play calling is changing. But it just seemed like they kind of I don't know, they went away from what they were doing early on, and they returned a kick in the second half and got down inside the 10 and didn't score any points off of it. You just can't have things like that. But they turned the ball over on Rigby, right? So Rigby had a play where they were down inside the 10 and Freeman got it stripped from his arms. Meridian picked it up at the goal line. So they were stopping Rigby. Teams were going back and forth. At the end of the day, it was just a classic 5A state championship between the best two teams in the state, to be honest. I mean, that at the end of the day, I think that's what it was. It was just the best two teams, and somebody had to win that game, and it was going to come down to a one possession game, which is exactly what it did.
Yeah, it was Nathan Reynolds played really well, the all-state linebacker for Meridian. He had an interception early in the game. He forced a fumble and recovered a fumble late in the contest. Yeah, Meridian forced a couple of turnovers on defense, ran the ball, controlled the clock. They executed their game plan to perfection, except for that fourth quarter, like you mentioned, Logan, where they just had a couple of drive stuff. To me, and again, I didn't see any of the game. I wasn't there, but to me, it seemed like Meridian's game plan was control the clock, force some turnovers, and in the fourth quarter, they couldn't pick up first downs when they needed to extend drive.
Yeah, they just weren't getting it done. I think Rigby adjusted, and it was really funny because I was right there, down there on the sideline, and Meridian got out to a quick start. And they got up 14-0 almost like that in that one. And I heard head coach Gonzalez, right, from Rigby.
Yeah.
Is that his last name, right?
Yeah, Gonzalez.
I said too many people's name over the last week. Yeah. So he was saying, guys, stop with the big plays. We can stop the run. And he was saying that we got the run. It's just the big plays. And they had given up a couple big plays and they shut down the run. I mean, Meridian was able to move the ball and control the clock, but at the end of the day, they didn't punch it in the end zone. They had a missed field goal there as well that factored into that. Honestly, making that field goal probably makes some sort of difference because Rigby scored with about 2 minutes left, got it to a 1 point game, and they went for two and took the lead. If that field goal is good, even with the 2 point conversion, you have the lead and you get the ball. And you're probably not coming out throwing. Martinez doesn't fumble that ball, intercept it, whatever it is. I would be very confident that Meridian could have eaten up the last 2 minutes. So that's retrospect, right? You look at different things here and there, but at the end of the day, it just somebody was going to win that game and somebody was going to lose it, and it was a shame. But a great environment. They did not open the upper deck there at Albertsons, but the lower was completely full on both sides. It was awesome. I mean, it was loud down there for some of the plays, and it was a great environment, great for all the kids, the fans. Rigby brought a ton of people. That whole Rigby side was full, and obviously the Meridian side as well. I think some people might have gotten mixed up on sides. I saw a couple of blue and yellow outfits in the Rigby section, and it just gave me a little chuckle. But I think there was no space on the Meridian side. So that's not football related, but just kind of an interesting note. But a great night. I mean, it was a good event, a great state tournament game. You can't ask for a better state tournament that comes down to the last 2 minutes of the game.
Yeah, it was a really fun game, and Rigby wins 28-21, the final there. So Meridian still in search of their first state championship in football since 2007, but they had an incredible season, obviously, and one loss on the year, and it came at the last game of the season. So what was more go ahead, Logan.
I was going to say, I think people maybe don't realize that these two teams have probably played two of the best games in Idaho in the past two seasons, right? Last year they had a triple overtime game at Meridian, and then this one went down to the wire too. These two, it's a budding rivalry, I think, right? That they know that those two are going to play close, and it's going to be a good game. And so I'm excited. I would love to see those two meet again next year. And you know what? Rigby it seems they just reload at quarterback, right? They've had 3 different guys win the state championship for them over the last 4 years. And all of them are going to play great football at the next level, probably, I would assume. So it's fun to see that from the Rigby side, at least.
Yeah, Keegan Thompson won the first title. He's at Idaho State University, and then Tiger Adolfo, and he's now at Weber State. And Luke Flowers, the current quarterback, has an offer from Arizona. So you're looking at possibly 3 Division I quarterbacks in a row for Rigby, which is just crazy to think about from our state of Idaho. But that's awesome and exciting for them for sure. And there's some D1 guys on that Meridian team as well. So what do you think is the more excruciating defeat? Meridian's loss at the end against Rigby when they were up 21-7 in the fourth, or is it Homedale's loss on Saturday to Sugar Salem?
I think it's Homedale, Brandon. I think it's Homedale. I get it. Meridian hasn't won a state championship since 2007. They've done it in some other sports. Basketball just came off the state championship a couple years ago, and they're kind of getting back. But Homedale, I tell you what, you don't want to say anybody's the Buffalo Bills from the 90s, but I tell you what, it's got to be. Homedale is looking like that, and I just feel bad for them. Like, they are just, again, so they lose to Sugar Salem again. Sugar Salem has ended their season 4 years in a row, or I think 5 years in a row. They 3 in a row were in a state championship. Last year was the semifinals, and this year again in the state championship. And it's tough. And they were right there. That was a slugfest, a punch for punch for punch. And Homedale, and I think Homedale, it's going to haunt them because they had chances. That's the thing, is that they stripped a fumble on the opening kickoff of the game, right? So Homedale kicked off, Sugar Salem got the ball, and Homedale took it away. No points. Late in the second quarter, Homedale was driving deep, and they fumbled the ball at the 3-yard line. And it was one where there was a lot of discussion whether or not it was a fumble or not. And I happened to be right there, and I got a picture of it. And you can see that he wasn't down. And it stinks. And you could hear the argument from I think it was Trenton Fisher that was running the ball. And he said that his ankle was down. Now, I can't confirm or deny that, but it's tough. Like, you were 3 yards away from punching that in. And there was a couple, and I am not gonna sit here and say whether they were good calls or bad calls, but there was a couple pass interference calls in that game that aided to Sugar Salem continuing on. Now, not just in the final drive. So the final drive there, where Sugar went down and scored. Yes, there was one. There was a couple of others that could have gone either way in that, and it just, I think Homedale will look at the tape and just say it was right there. And it was right there. They just, and they led that game 15-14. They took the lead. They faked the extra point, which was awesome. And they were down on a knee to take it, spun out and threw it into the end zone. It was a great play to take the lead late in that one. But then Sugar comes down and scores. And then Sugar got the ball back with, I think, 3 minutes left. And Homedale just couldn't stop them. And Sugar ran out the clock. So, you know what? I'm going to lean Homedale on that just because of past history, and I felt like they had a shot at it, and they were right there.
Yeah, it was brutal to see that unfold on Saturday, and where Homedale down 16-15 had one final drive where they were driving, and it came down to a 4th and 2, and Fisher, stretches for the first down, right? And they got to bring the chains out and couple inches short on that.
Yeah, well, I was surprised they measured it because he was almost a full yard short.
Okay.
At least from my eye. But that was an interesting set of downs there. I think they had it like 2nd and 3, and they could not pick up 3 yards. So, hey, you know what? Credit to Sugar Salem. Like, I'm not saying that it was all Homedale's fault or whatever it is, but Sugar's defense was tough. I mean, both defenses were very good. Those are two offenses that score at will on whoever they want and put up a gazillion points every week. And they did not this week. Those defenses were very good. They forced turnovers. They punched each other in the mouth. and it was just kind of who is going to squeak some points out here and there. And 3 touchdowns to 2 touchdowns at the end of the day. That's the difference. But Homedale had their chances. I guess that's my point at the end of it, is that they had shots. You know, they were inside the 20 multiple, at least twice, right, on the opening kickoff, then late in the game, 3 times I'll say, and then the fumble where they came away with no points. And that's more than Sugar Salem can say, to be honest. Like Sugar, they scored when they had the chance. A couple of their scores were on long plays. They didn't really grind it. They had one where Daniel Neal punched it in, the game-winning score. He 1-yard quarterback sneak to get in. But man, yeah, just a tough break for Homedale, because I thought they played a really good game.
Neal has scored, and I'm exaggerating, but only slightly. Neal has scored like 30 QB sneaks this year, like from the 1 or 2. They just give it to him and he sneaks it in. It's been crazy.
And he's a big guy, and he just plowed right through. Like, he just gets up over the line, and that's all you need to do. And you know what? It works, and it worked again, and they were able to get it done.
Definitely. So Meridian and Homedale kind of had similar themes, right? Missed opportunities, chances to win the game. And now our final game we'll talk about is the 4A championship, where Bishop Kelly took on Skyline. Logan, the final score in this game was Skyline 50, Bishop Kelly 35. At halftime, the game was tied 14-14. So there was a lot of action in the second half. It was crazy. BK ran.
I was listening to you and Scott on the call when my game got over, the 5A game, and I mean, I made it almost all the way back to Middleton before you guys were 3 minutes into the second half. Like it took a long. There was just so much going on there in that second half.
Yeah, it was crazy. So BK ran their game plan to perfection in the first half, where each side only really had 2 possessions. Skyline had one right before halftime that didn't result in anything. So it was 14-14 at halftime. And then this third quarter was insane. BK gets the ball to start the second half. Cole Miller gets it at the 4-yard line, bobbles it, drops it, picks it up, and takes it 96 yards for a touchdown. BK's up 21-14 all of a sudden. They get flagged for an excessive celebration penalty, though. And that ended up being, looming large, because from there, BK decided to squib kick it to Skyline. Skyline gets it at the 46-yard line, their own 46. One play later, they throw a screen to Kenyon Sadiq. He's gone for a touchdown. Logan, we were not even 20 seconds into the third quarter, and both sides had already scored a touchdown, 21-all. It was insane. And then from there, I mean, you want special teams. This was the quarter for you. We had then Skyline came down and scored again to go up 29-22. And then Skyline decides to go for the onside kick. And Bishop Kelly recovers it, but flag comes out, illegal procedure against Skyline. Basically, not everybody was set. So you got to move it back, 10 yards and kick again. Skyline goes for the onside kick a second time, knowing that it has to travel now, 15 plus yards before they can recover. And Skyline recovers the onside kick. I mean, the cojones for Scott Berger, the head coach for Skyline, to go for that twice was nuts. It was insane.
And if you haven't seen that play, look at our Instagram page. It's a reel on there. There's a great shot of it. It just takes like a boom, like a big bounce right at the end, and just gets over everybody and just dies right in there. I think the caption on it said textbook onside kick, and there's 3 smart A's on there that are like, that's not textbook, there is no textbook onside kick. The textbook says kick it and get it. That's what the textbook says. Does it not? It doesn't say it must do this to be. It says kick it and get it. That's what it says. By definition, that was a textbook onside kick, and they got it. It is great. It is a thing of beauty. It is fun to watch it. I catch myself watching it again and again. But man, it's tough for Bishop Kelly that, just a couple of just bad mistakes at the end. And like you said, the score probably doesn't indicate how good of a game that really was.
Yeah, so just in terms of special teams in that second half, we had Cole Miller return the kickoff for Bishop Kelly for a touchdown. We had Skyline get the onside kick 2 separate times. By the way, Dietrich also recovered an onside kick in the first game of the doubleheader Friday, Logan. So I saw 2 successful onside kicks in a row, back to back. It was just nuts. So Cole Miller returns. Cole Miller takes the kickoff back for the touchdown. Skyline recovers the onside kick. Skyline blocked a PAT from Bishop Kelly, and then Kenyon Sadiq uncorked like a 60-yard punt that was downed at the 1-yard line. That was all in the second half of action. Just these wild special teams plays that really swung the momentum. But at the end of the day, Bishop Kelly couldn't stop Skyline's offense, and that's fine. There's a lot of teams that can't stop Skyline's offense, but then you got to be able to trade blows with them. And Bishop Kelly just had a couple of empty possessions, and that ultimately did them. But they hung tough for really, 3/4 of that game, and nothing to be ashamed about if you're a BK fan. That Skyline team is just really good.
It almost seemed like Skyline got a nice slap to the face when they lost to Bonneville, right? They kind of been a little bit groggy, I thought, through the season. They get beat, and that's just an ultimate what happened. And then ever since then, they go on to win all their games, and kind of wasn't really close the rest of the season for Skyline. Maybe just a little wake-up call that they needed in that game. And hey, 3 in a row for them. They're a dynasty at this point, right? I think when you win 3 in a row, that you can say that, and they're on fire right now, and they're definitely the class of 4A football.
Yeah, they've won 3 in a row, Logan, and they've won 5 of the last 7 in 4A football as well. So this is an extended run that Skyline is on for sure. So pretty impressive.
Right.
Yep. All right. Well, that'll do it for our Treasure Valley Prepcast. It's good to be back, Logan. We had a couple of weeks off, and now we're kind of getting back into the groove of things, and just in time for winter sports.
Yeah.
Girls basketball has started. Spoiler alert, Melba, really, really, really good. We will talk about that, Melba. Oh, go ahead, Logan.
That's what I was going to say real quick before we go. Somebody should mention Melba girls basketball, because they've been laying a licking on people, and they beat Columbia real bad. And that's, a good Columbia team who's played competitive games against 5A schools, and Melba put it to them. So that's all I want to say. From what I've seen so far in girls basketball, Melba looks good. And hey, Middleton with a big win over Eagle, and the Vikings sit at 3-0. So I think they lost a lot of people from last year. A lot of girls gone from that Middleton squad, and they're 3-0 with a win over Eagle to start the year. So those are just the 2 girls basketball quick shout outs I wanted to give.
Yeah, new basketball coach at Middleton on the girls' side, Brad Huter, who coached at Notice for a really long time, and he's now in charge at Middleton. So yes, a lot of girls basketball. Boys basketball will start in 2 weeks. Wrestling is getting going. We're going to have a ton of preview content on our site. Right now, you can see the preseason coaches polls for all of the girls basketball conferences around the state of Idaho, how the coaches voted. Girls basketball previews will be up on our site this week. Boys basketball previews will follow. We're going to have a ton of wrestling coverage. We're going to have preseason rankings in wrestling, and we're bringing back this year for wrestling, Logan, individual rankings each and every week. We're going to rank the individual wrestlers by weight class. It's going to be a lot of fun. And so we're really going to step up our wrestling game this winter as well. But we'll take the rest of this week for the holiday, and then we'll get back into the winter sports scene here at IdahoSports.com. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, Brandon, should be fun to see how everything shakes out.
Definitely. All right, Logan. Well, enjoy your Thanksgiving at the in-laws, and everybody out there that's watching or listening, happy Thanksgiving. If you're traveling somewhere, get there safely. Our thoughts will be with you as you're traveling and navigating. This time of year can be somewhat treacherous. So, and we'll see you all back here again next week for another edition of the Treasure Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.